If you want to build this model for yourself, instructions are available on my Patreon, just $3.50 a month. Here we have the third and final member of the Skyterra King trio, UNDEX. I've always felt that the original UNDEX was maybe just a little too cartoony compared to his teammates. So, for my version, I tried to just slightly increase the realism. He still has the overall blocky shape going on, but he's got a longer body, larger, more proportional fins, and I've moved his eyes from the front to the sides. Certainly, he's still pretty far from a realistic whale, but I think those few changes help to bring him slightly more in line with the other members of the trio aesthetically. Up front, you'll notice I've used some rounded 1x2 plates to give him some subtle tooth shaping around his mouth. I've actually used that same rounded plate piece in blue for his eyes, taking advantage of the hollow stud to give him a pupil. I really like how that ended up, with the eye inset one plate behind the tiles. Unfortunately, you may notice some line details on his fins that shouldn't really be there. At the very least, since they're on the bottom of the fins, it is easy enough to keep them mostly hidden, but they always peek out just a little bit. Continuing that trend, the very tip of his tail fin is dotted with red tiles. That's because it becomes his weapon in bot mode. If possible, I would have loved to have those details fold away, but at this scale, that's just not really doable. Bringing in invertebrate for size comparison, I think the two look rather nice together. I have no clue what kind of whale UNDEX is, but I'm sure there's at least one kind out there that would scale like this relative to a giant squid. For articulation in this mode, he is able to open his mouth quite wide. So wide, in fact, that he kind of looks like he's broke his jaw. Then his fins can raise and lower slightly, rotate, and hinge forward and backwards. All around, I'm pretty happy with UNDEX's whale mode. I think the original design was super charming and memorable, so I was definitely riding a fine line by trying to change it. But I think I managed to find a nice middle ground between retaining what made the original feel special and making him feel a little more at home with the remade trio. But that's all there is to say about whale mode, so now it's time to transform. To transform UNDEX, the first thing you're going to want to do is just pull off the tail fin, and this will be his weapon. Now we're going to want to take the top of the whale's head and just bring it up like this. It'll come up in two halves. Just like that. And then we can basically do the same thing with the bottom jaw. Now turning him around, we want to straighten out these appendages to become his legs. So they just swing down like that. And other side is just the same. Then you want to swing down this, which will obviously be his arm, fold out his hand, and rotate around this chunk to kind of be an elbow pad almost. Same thing over on the other side. Swing down the arm, fold out the hand, and rotate around this chunk of arm. And last but not least, we need to form the head. We're just going to take these fins, swivel them around, bringing them together, and then just fold them up. And once you get that straightened out, you have UNDEX in his robot mode. But of course, that's not it. You also need to bring back his missile launcher here and peg that onto his arm. Here we have UNDEX in his bot mode, where I think he looks a lot of fun. Transformation-wise, he's changed a fair bit compared to the original. Classic UNDEX split in half at the waist, with his upper body and lower body effectively being built the same. For my version, I simplified things slightly, and now he splits in half lengthwise. This ended up pretty drastically changing how the transformation works. Originally, UNDEX's limbs were formed from what were effectively puzzle piece chunks of the whale's head. Now, the legs are formed from the lower jaw, while the arms are made from the rest of the head. The original build had these little fin-like extrusions on his limbs, but unfortunately I wasn't able to emulate that on my take. But I do like how long and flat his legs end up, almost like they're fins themselves. On the original, one of the whale eyes ended up mounted on his chest. Now, since both eyes are on his arms, his chest is maybe a little bit boring by comparison. The head is easily the most interesting part of the transformation, and was the cause of the unsightly lime marks in whale mode. The two fins come together to form his memorable tall soldier hat head. I think that's a super cool detail. The tail fin of the whale becomes his large missile launcher, and I'll be honest, it is a bit unwieldy. On the original model, it was also able to form a backpack, which I always thought looked a bit cooler. However, a backpack that has to be taken off for transformation is kind of just straight up parts forming. Meanwhile, a weapon that does the same is at least a bit forgivable. So for my version, I decided to not include the backpack feature. Bringing in invertebrate for size comparison again, I think the two look great together. Admittedly, they don't share too many similarities beyond the obvious color scheme, but both of their heads are built sideways with similar 2-plate thick visor faces, so there is at least one thing to tie them together. For articulation, unfortunately UNDEX isn't able to look left and right, but he is able to look up and down a little bit. He has a universal joint at the shoulders, a bend at the elbow, and a hinge at the wrist. He can kick forward and backward at the hips, in and out. He has a bend at the knee, and this other hinge at the knee, which isn't super useful. Honestly, I think UNDEX might be my favorite of the original Skyterra King builds, so this guy had a lot to live up to. In the end, I think my UNDEX is lots of fun. He's got a really cool alt mode, a decent transformation with a super fun head reveal, and a solid bot mode. I also think he forms a really sick pair of arms, but you'll have to wait to see that in the combination video. Anyways, if you want to build this model for yourself, instructions are available on my Patreon, just $3.50 a month. But that's all I have for now, so I'll see you next time.